Well, Stephen, everything I've just heard tells you that you just got to buy stocks anytime they come down. That's a fabulously bullish scenario you just outlined.
Well, I think it is. I mean, I think clearly you see a completely different economic agenda with the Trump administration. I think 2.0 is going to continue on in a very strong way. We should touch on tariffs a little bit. I know it's the president's favorite topic, but I see U.S. earnings being very bullish over time. Having said that, some of this AI stuff has gotten ahead of itself, and some of those valuations we may see adjustments.
You do? You think so? What do you think about when you say something like that, Stephen?
Well, I just think there's been massive spending on AI, and I think AI is going to be transformational. There's no question it's going to impact everything we do. But I think the economic model for AI to spend, to support this massive CapEx spending that we're seeing is something that is concerning to me. It's going to be a very big use of energy. You see massive construction of U.S. data centers. So there's going to be tremendous demand for additional AI. But I think we're going to have to wait and see what the economic impact is and how people make money on it.
Right. Although there is an opportunity, isn't there, still in data centers and potentially financing them and clipping a coupon, so to speak, as an investor like yourself? I don't know if you're looking at it, but I can't imagine you aren't.
We are. We're very interested in particularly U.S. data centers in good markets that have access to energy, whether it's because of AI or because of the cloud business. That's definitely something that's very interesting.
Let's talk tariffs, since you mentioned it. Are you surprised that Canada seems to be sort of one of the early focuses of the Trump administration?
Well, first, let me comment. I was pleased to see the president's EO on trade basically instruct the Commerce Department, Treasury, and the USTR to analyze the trade issues and come back to him with recommendations. I think the China deal has to be on the top of the list, where China has not been following the commitments they made. I think he's going to have to look at whether he wants to put on across-the-board tariffs, as he's talked about, which is a form of a consumption tax on foreign imports. If that money was used to pay down debt, that's one thing. It may be a source of funding for the tax bill. I think as it relates to Mexico and Canada on February 1, I hope that Mexico and Canada come to the negotiating table and do whatever he wants them to do on the immigration issue so that those don't get implemented. I think that would have a very negative impact on many of our economic issues and supply chains, particularly with Mexico.
There are some who seem to be optimistic somehow that nothing has happened in this first 24 hours with regard to China that indicates there's a deal to be done, but I don't. Where are you on that? Do you think that there is a deal to be done with China, or are your expectations more towards that there eventually will be significant tariffs?
Well, I think President Trump has been very strong on saying that he wants to implement tariffs. He wants to use them to raise revenues. He's talked about the External Revenue Service. I mean, in essence, we have an External Revenue Service. Customs and Borders is the one that collects the tariffs, so they could break the group out of that and name it the External Revenue Service. It's not the IRS that does that. He said in his inauguration speech yesterday, again, it can be a great sense of, well, I think the sooner that you can give clarity to the market as to what we expect in the plan, the better off we'll be.
Steve, I know you've always been concerned about social issues and the idea of equality in the country. It's been one of your hallmarks when I've spoken with you. What do you think about what former President Biden talked about in terms of the oligarch society, and whether that is something we should be concerned about as a nation?
Look, I think that President Trump in the first term was very pro-business, and you see this in the second term. And I think it's great that the technology companies are coming to the table and looking to work with the administration in a constructive way. These are some of our greatest assets and some of our most important businesses. And I think it's very good that there's a working relationship with business.